Gee, we're back.
Back in the room. How was that?
That's good. Where did you hang out, Bobby?
I was drawn towards my own name, the Gulls.
And what were they like? What were the Gulls like?
So Gulls, interesting chat about how you need a hook to get people into maths, because we were saying, like, if you put up like x plus 2x equals 3x on a whiteboard, most people, even myself, they're like, what's going on? Whereas if you say, if someone's baking a cake and they're making one cake twice as large as another cake, people are like, oh, what's going on? Just trying to find a real life hook. Hi, Kit. It's great to meet Kit, because Kit and I've twittered away for the last couple of years, but for the first time I'm seeing him, not real, but close.
It's amazing. We can almost see each other through the internet. It's absolutely amazing.
So, well, Bobby, introduce Kit, because he's in your world. Like, who is this man who's just appeared on Rebel Book Club?
So Kit is a mathematical biologist from the University of Bath. Is that correct? And Kit's been particularly prominent during COVID, because obviously it's about mathematics and biology. Combine them together, and you get Venn diagram. Kit's in the middle of it. Do check Kit on Twitter. He does a lot of interesting stuff, and he's got a great book called The Maths of Life and Death. Kit's someone that he's one of my inspirations in the field of mathematics communication. I'm a Man City fan, so after Saturday, when West Ham get hammered by Man City, I might not be a big fan of Kit, but for now, till Saturday, I'm a fan of Kit.
Kit, well, what an introduction. You're doing our work for us, Bobby. Welcome, Kit. Great to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm incredibly humbled by the introduction, because I'd say that Bobby is definitely an inspiration for me in terms of his vigor and energy and the way that he's getting maths out to the public. So yeah, great stuff. Really delighted by that. Thanks, Bobby.
Oh, it's great to have you both with us. So before we're going to have a quick chat with you, Kit, and then we've got Lucy from Maths on Toast joining us as well. Bobby, the quiz. So see if anyone's put some answers in here. Victoria has said what, Ben?
I feel like Victoria bossed it. She was here early. She came in with the answer. She said they had it sussed pretty early on. And Victoria said turn them at the same time, and after 7 minutes, there. Bobby is doing it by the medium of interpretive dance.
It's my Strictly audition, isn't it?
Someone, one of your friends from Strictly actually sent us a story, Katia, this evening.
Yes.
So Bobby, tell us talk us through the answer.
Oh God! Okay, I thought Ben was talking through, and I was gonna.
Hey, you're the expert.
Okay, so the question was, with a 7-minute timer and an 11-minute timer, the fan glasses, can you make a 15-minute session? And I think it was. I'm trying to find a taller version. Okay, so imagine you turn over both timers, the 7 and the 11. Once it gets to 7 minutes, you turn over the God, I'm confusing myself. This is maths anxiety being put on the spot. I've got the answer in front of me. I'm still struggling to read it. Okay, so when the 7-minute timer is emptied, you turn it back around, and then you turn the 7-minute over, and then what will happen is the 11-minute timer will have 4 minutes left, and then you got the 7 plus the 4. God, am I completely botching this up? Let me just read my answer rather than
help you out.
Turn it back over, right?
So Kit.
You've got the 4 minutes left. Turn that back over and let it run for 4 minutes. And then turn it back over again. You've got 11 more minutes. Is that right?
Yes.
Am I botching it through?
There we go. That's it.
We're in safe hands here.
Thank you, Kit, for rescuing me. Interestingly, there is something about maths, and I've done this actually part of my research, maths anxiety. So even I've got the answer in front of me, but sometimes when you're performing maths in front of people, there's something about it that makes you have a little bit of panic. And I was looking at my answer like, does it make sense? I'm like 7 plus 4 plus 4. So you can doubt yourself. So so even myself, I get moments of maths anxiety.
So the Hawks take the point there. Well played. Harini has said for the second quiz answer, Team Goals number 2, 60 non-fiction books and 39 fiction.
That is spot on.
Well played, Team Goals. Did anyone else get that? Shabar's just shouting flamingos randomly.
He's just proud.
He's got the right answers too. Well played. We're going to have to give out too many prizes here. So listen, if you are team captain tonight and you got the answer with your team correct, you've won yourself a Rebel Book Club from our shelves. You've got a choice of you can fight between yourselves. A new Adam Grant book, Think Again. The Courage to Care. We'll buy a copy of Kit's book and send to one of the team captains. And the fourth book is show us the book, Kit.
This is the proof book. That's the only one I actually have in my house. But I do have also the Spanish version and the American version, the Math of Life.
The Math of Life and Death.
We are covered.
Let's say, so if you want the Spanish version of the Math, can you read us the Spanish version, Kit?
Yeah, death is a bit taboo across a lot of the continent, so it's just called Los Números de la Vida, the numbers of life.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's like a halfway to a Coldplay classic. And then the fourth book that's up for grabs, I think Holly is in on this as well, who won the overall quiz earlier, is the Vice President of America's book, Kamala Harris's autobiography, which we've got our hands on as well. So message us. We'll get the books out to you. We'll buy. Kit's thought you're not sending one to us. We're buying it and sending it on to you. So that's great. Well done. Well played, everyone. Kit, it's great to have you with us. Tell us, you've got this amazing book in 3 languages, if you count the American versus the English versions too, out into the world. Take us back a little bit. Like we spoke with Bobby earlier about where the spark, the flame, in terms of his relationship with numbers began. Where did it start for you?
Yeah, so the book itself is not as much autobiographical as Bobby's is, although I tell a few little stories about my family, about doing maths with my kids, about hunting snails. But really, for me, I love the idea that maths can be a practical tool to help us describe the world around us. And I think at school, for me, there was always this dichotomy between mathematics. So you did maths if you liked science, and you were sort of a bit physicsy, bit nerdy, maybe, whatever. And then there was biology, and people, did biology if they liked cutting stuff up and like eyeballs and stuff. I didn't like cutting stuff up and eyeballs. Because I fainted in a biology lesson once when there was like a fish head on the table and I went in. But I did like maths, but I did also love biology. I just couldn't handle the gruesome ickiness of it. So I knew I couldn't be a doctor. And so when it came to A-levels, I decided that I needed to do maths. I had to choose between maths and biology. So I did maths, further maths, and did physics and chemistry. And I had to drop biology. And that was really sad. And because I'd done maths and further maths at A-level, I thought, well, I'll go and do this at uni as well. It would be a waste of the 2 A-levels that I've done. And so I did that at uni, and I was a bit disappointed to be leaving biology behind forever. But actually, when I got to university, what I realized was that maths is the best way we have of describing the world around us. It's the best way we have of describing how, quantum effects mess around at subatomic levels, and how gravity can bend space-time through this theory of general relativity. It's an amazing tool that we have to help to enhance the performance of athletes, or to take us to Mars, to make scenes in movies that couldn't exist in reality. So I realized that maths was this amazing way of describing the world around us, and no more so is that true than in the subject that I eventually went back into, which was biology. And so I ended up being a mathematical biologist. And at the same time at uni, I started doing outreach. So I worked with Marcus de Sautoy, who's a relatively famous mathematical popularizer. He's sort of a hero of mine, and probably Bobby's as well, I imagine. He's a big deal in his outreach group. And I decided that I really enjoyed trying to spread this message that, maths can turn people off, but actually it can be really important, and it can be fun, and it can be interesting. And so the book is all about places where maths has had an impact on people's everyday lives, maybe without them even realizing it. And it's about giving people tools that they can maybe use in their everyday lives to get the most out of life. And it's telling stories of people's real lives. So there's no equations in the whole of the book. It's all stories, because I think stories are just the best way to hook people in. And so we meet people who have lost children because of a mathematical misunderstanding, or people who've lost fortunes. We meet people who've been crippled by faulty genes or faulty algorithms. We meet people who've been maligned in the law courts by mathematical mistakes. Just telling people stories where maths has had an impact and they might not even realizing it, and making people realize that just a little bit of mathematical knowledge, or even just a bit of mathematical confidence, can go a really, really long way. So yeah,
it sounds brilliant, Kit. And at the end of it, are we optimistic? Do you leave the reader with the closer we are to the numbers, the more dashboards that we follow? Because we've been drenched in data this year, right? With the COVID crisis. Yeah. Even if we didn't want it, it's there all the time. the R number. We're focusing on the R number now. Now we're focusing on this number, and they're like, here we're measuring death rates in different ways. Like, do you feel? I'm assuming that you feel like the closer and the better the relationship we have with numbers, the better life is.
Yeah, I think I'm not an advocate of the idea that everyone has to be a genius mathematician, that everyone has to go out and do their A levels again or go to uni and do mathematics. I don't think that's true. I don't think it's necessary for everyone to do that to get the benefits or the enjoyment of mathematics. But for the kids that were sat in the back of the classroom saying, when am I ever going to use this? Well, this time last year, it exploded into our lives. We were talking about R, we were talking about exponential growth all the time. And actually it's strange to see my sort of subject area that had been previously something that we taught to students and that we'd done in our own sort of backwater, publishing papers, to see it explode across the world was in many ways an amazing thing. Not to be too opportunistic, there's awful things that have happened from COVID, but from a maths communication point of view, it's hopefully made people realize how important understanding mathematics is. And really the only way that we can predict what's going to happen in the future is by writing down a mathematical model of what's going to happen and running that model forward and saying, well, this is what we predict. And we have to be clear about the assumptions that we put into it, because the model's only as good as the assumptions that go into it. But yeah, just bringing it back to the book. Yeah, hopefully the book does finish with a positive message that it's not, you don't have to be a genius mathematician to harness the power of mathematics and to enjoy it. I always say, when you're singing in the bathroom and your voice resonates in the shower, you're hearing mathematics. And when you kick a ball into the back of the net and it takes a parabolic arch, you're doing mathematics. And when you see a snowflake flying through the air, you're seeing mathematics. And so I don't know, I think it just enhances the beauty of the world for me.
Amazing. Now we've got hundreds of questions piling in here, so BSG is going to filter them through, and then we'll get Lucy up in about 5 minutes time to join the party. So cool. throw these at Bobby and Kit, Ben.
We've got loads of questions, and Bobby has kindly offered to answer some if we don't get around to them today. So thanks for that, Bobby. In the meantime, I will start with a fun one. With travel hopefully returning, and this is from Dale. He asks, he was wondering if math would be able to help to choose the quickest moving line at immigration.
So Kit, have you seen some research about people? There's not really maths, there's more like empirical data, but looking at if you're in a tube station and you've got options of either going on the left-hand side, the right-hand side, or the middle, the researchers said that actually if you pick one particular side and stick with it, you do better off than if you're in the middle and trying to weave your way through. Have you seen that research before?
No, I haven't seen that one. I do. The way that I always play these games, it's not completely correct, but is this idea of optimal stopping. And I know that you probably talked about this before, Bobby, but yeah, when I'm in the supermarket and I've got 10 lines to choose from, then I'm walking along past each one, then I try and go for this optimal stopping route, which is you take the first third, you look at them and see how long they are, and then, or it's 37%, but a third works roughly. And then you take the best one after that works as well, that's shorter than all the ones you've seen before. It doesn't work every time, right? But it gives you the best chance of getting the best queue. I don't know if you can do that in immigration, if it'll work out quite like that, but yeah, that's my mathematical recommendation. But this idea of the tubes, like not swapping around, I suppose it makes sense that you don't want to be missing by accident by swapping things around, I guess.
Actually, funny, we talked about optimal stopping theory when it came to dating earlier on. Yeah.
Right.
I think it's, and I was saying earlier, like I have tried to apply it in my dating life, not well. And I had one date that called me up on it. She said, "I read your article. Am I in your first 37%? If I am, should I leave?" And I told her she was, but she was willing to we had a discussion about the optimal stopping theory for about an hour.
That's funny.
Mass dating jokes going on here. It's great.
I know, we love it. Some supermarket strategy as well. Very useful at the moment. But swiftly on to one from Jacqueline, who asks, mortgage or pension? Would you get a property first before investing more in a pension, or hold off on a house so you can put more in the pension?
Ooh. So I put a little disclaimer saying you don't take any financial advice, I'm saying. But generally speaking, what we've seen, so essentially a pension is an investment ultimately in the financial stock markets. That's what it is pension funds invest in markets, whereas a mortgage is investment in the housing market. Generally speaking, in the last 30 years, we've probably seen more growth in the housing market. than we have in the stock markets. So probably that alone tells you longer term. But the thing with markets, from my experiences, in the short terms, there's a phrase that says the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. So sometimes the market's in crazy things and it makes no sense. Like, there's a house here that's dropped 50%, but actually the house is a really good house. So the markets can sometimes be a bit crazy. So that's why short term, we see things like Bitcoin going up and down. Long term is there real fundamental value? That's a harder question, and you have to decide for yourself.
I think I'd agree with that. I mean, with a mortgage, you're sort of tied into it and you've no option to sell your shares early. I think with the market, you've got to, pension's slightly different. If you're playing the market yourself, you've got to be confident. You've got to hold your nerve, haven't you? If you see it going down, you've got to say, well, I invested in this. I thought the value of the company was undervalued at the time I invested and that it should go up. Got to be confident in that. Because if you end up selling every time things go down, then you end up losing money no matter what you do. So yeah, you've got to be confident. Obviously, if you buy a house, especially if you want to live in it, then you don't really have a choice to make those sorts of decisions. So it's a bit of a dichotomy.
And I didn't do it in Bali when we met and started Rebel Book Club, and they had a Bitcoin. You could buy Bitcoin like on the street there, really cheap.
There was an ATM in the office, and this was like 6.5 years ago. And there were these meetups about Bitcoin. We're like, who are these nerds? Like,
we're gonna start a book club. You go and do your Bitcoin thing.
Yeah, and look at us now.
Here we are. Okay, two more questions, and we'll get Lucy up.
So this one I think has come up a few times. Really interesting theme. And to both of you guys, really, are we teaching children the right math skills for real life? We've never necessarily used trigonometry since leaving school, but there are things like credit scores and compound interest at the moment which feel like they're super relevant. So should the focus be on math literacy, or how do you feel its application should sit?
So I'll maybe jump in. I got in trouble at the weekend because I did an interview in The Observer where I was talking about homeschooling, and I gave a critique of some of the things that are being taught in primary school. It wasn't intended as being critical of teachers. It wasn't. I think teachers are doing an amazing job, especially during the pandemic. But I think there's not that much space in the curriculum for joy, for exploring the spaces that could be left and to try things out. Besides that, I think there is this great qualification now called core maths, which sits somewhere between GCSE and A-level maths. And Bobby probably knows much more about it than I do, but it is exactly that sort of practical, useful mathematics that they're trying to teach, trying to get people to think about maths in the real world and to teach people maths that they'll need for finance and maths that they'll need in the real world. And I think there's, as well as there being a space for pure mathematics and mathematics for the sake of mathematics, because I think that's the reason we do the arts as well, arts for the sake of arts. I think there's a space for practical maths, and I think core maths does a good job of delivering.
So I completely agree with everything Kit said. And one thing I'd probably add is, so sometimes when we think about people that can't do maths, in the UK, actually, 1 in 2 people, according to National Numeracy, the charity, have the numeracy skills we'd expect from an 11-year-old. So bear in mind, so 1/3 of people fail GCSE, although that's sort of like they always make 1/3 fail. And so there's 1/3 think they can't do maths. And it ends up being a half of grown adults having, again, the skills of an 11-year-old. So I think there's also a case for there's maths and there's numeracy. There's a significant proportion of the population that maybe maths itself, maybe they won't appreciate or use, but their numeracy skills is something they will need, but that's very poor. So again, basic things like understanding percentages, times tables, basic fractions, ratios. So maybe there's like a core version of, like, core maths is a brilliant course aimed at 16-year-olds. Maybe there's like a core maths aimed at 11-year-olds where they get all the nuts and bolts secured. And then if they want to do the more fun stuff, they should be having access to that.
Awesome. And then finally, on the subject of teaching, I know we've got a few parents in the audience this evening. Phil asks, how have you managed to keep math lessons interesting and engaging through lockdown?
Oh, so in my school, we don't really allow the students to switch on. We did early on switch on their cameras because they can get up to, there's some kids that will just put like signs or start being silly, like pretending they're walking down. But generally I try to make it linked to the real world as much as possible. One is because obviously there's lots of amazing YouTube maths lessons. So in theory, kids could just watch that. So I try and make it relevant to what's happened recently. So for example, a couple of weeks ago, I was doing fractions with the year 7 class, and I brought up West Ham's results. So West Ham had played, was it last week, 24, won 12, drawn 6, lost 6. And I told them, here's an example from yesterday. Can you put that in its simplest terms? 24 12, 6, 6. So I think it's trying to show maths that you can see in the real world. Like I'll bring up a clip from the BBC website, and I'm sure that in the next week's lessons, I'll bring up stuff from Mars Perseverance. So I think if you can show kids it in the real world, not just something in a textbook, I'm sure Kit will probably agree about the real world relevance. That's what makes people think, actually, maths actually is out there. It's not just in Mr. Seagull said.
I absolutely. So my teaching is university level teaching, so I'm not dealing with the kids messing around so much. The students are generally pretty well behaved, but exactly the same. If I'm talking about how do we date the age of the solar system by using the amount of uranium on the planet, then I'll go off on one and talk about atom bombs, and I'll talk about Alan Turing's work during the war, and I'll just try and throw in stories and real world stuff, just to keep it interesting. So and probably, as Bobby is excellent at making up these riddles and games. I have a feature which my students christened the riddle in the middle, which we stop in the middle of the game, of the lesson, so the lecture, and we just have a little break and we do something completely different to what the lecture's doing, and just try and mix it up and keep their their attention for as long as possible. But yeah, trying to mix it up, bringing real world stuff, just like Bobby's saying, is my method for doing it.
Well, you guys are nailing it. Kit, you're on Sky News talking about the R number. Bobby's like halfway to getting on Strictly Come Dancing. Well, we're going to come back to that before the end of the session. We've got one final question to run around the table here tonight. Bobby, thank you so much for being with us all month and leading the show tonight. Kit, it's great to have you with us. The maths of life and death. Let's see it again. The American book cover stood out. The math. There you go. That is out. If you want to go get involved with another book on this subject that's going to be around for a while, and Lucy with Matt from Maths on Toast. So the final question is this: what is the most important number in the world to you? Part one. And part two, what is the most important number in the world? They may be the same, but out of pure curiosity, what's the most important number in the world to you right now? And what's the most important number in the world? Bobby, you've got your hand up.
Yeah. Oh, I was actually thinking. So I'll put you the most important number in the world, and the most important number to me second. So the most important number in the world, I think, is 1.5, and that's because that's the amount that we're aiming for global warming. So I think the UN panel for climate change says that if we can keep global warming at 1.5 rather than 2 degrees, it will have a huge impact on the world. So I think that's the most important number in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
The most important number to me is 2007, because 2007, that's 20th of July, is my mom's birthday. And if I ever forget that, my life's over. So that's the most.
He wants to save the world and remember his mum's birthday. What's not to love?
Hey, Dave, what's going on?
What's going on? Quick, by the way, in the last 5 minutes here, give us a shout if you want to set Bobby up with somebody, or maybe yourself. Kit, you're on.
So for me, with COVID at the moment, the most important number concept is R, the reproduction number. If we can keep R below 1, keep cases falling across the world ideally, but specifically we're talking about the UK here, as we start to open up out of lockdown, then that will mean that we can avoid potentially thousands of unnecessary deaths. So that's, across the world, reproduction number is incredibly important. For me, I've got two. I wanted to show you these bad boys, if I can break them out. These are my
out, ladies and gentlemen.
My mathematical tattoos are 2 bees, and they are one for each of my kids. They were designed by my brother. He's an artist, and their stripes are not black and white alternating stripes. They're actually binary for the letters or the numbers in the alphabet which correspond to my kids' names. So this one here, the very tail is yellow, and so is the next, or so the one after, you probably can't see, but that's a 1, and it's in binary, so it's a 1, no 2s, a 4, so that makes 5, and that's E, that's for Emmeline. And then this one makes 23 in binary, which is a W for my son William. So those are 2 of the most important numbers to me personally.
That is an amazing answer. We didn't tee that one up. And do the names or numbers change when you really squeeze?
Yeah, they change their names as well.
Cool. Steve and John, when you do a squeeze. Lucy, what numbers matter to you?
I'm going to be not very original and agree with Bobby there on the 1.5, because keeping global warming below that, because it's that whole point that everybody has to, every little thing that can be done. that's positive impact in bringing it down, and of course the pressure that we need to apply to our government and our leaders to do that. On a personal level, we're doing our activity packs at the moment, and we have got 500 being prepared to go out to communities, to families in London who don't have access to a lot of resources at home, and we are going to have them delivered by bicycle courier, of course, rather than a traditional van delivery. So I'm going with 1.5 with Bobby, and my favourite number at the moment is 0, because we just did a session, Maths on Toast stay-in session. We do it once a month in conjunction with Brent Libraries. It's online, so if people want to join in, have a look for them. And last month's was number characters. It was taking all the characters and you create your own story about that number character and all the different properties that number has. And our story that we created as an example was the value of 0. So 0 is going to be my
answer. It reminds me of Number Blocks, which I happily watch with my children. It's a great show. Bobby, Kit, and Lucy, thanks so much for being us. We're going to wave goodbye, and Ben and I are going to wrap up the session. Bobby, it's a real pleasure to hang out with you over the last month. Kit, brilliant work, and thank you for helping us with the R number. You've been doing a great job in the media on that. And Lucy, what a champion for closing the numeracy gap. Thank you for your work. Great to see you guys. So you can click leave and wander off into the night.